Okay, so we're going to start letting people in. We should be starting in 3 minutes. So I know people are logging in right now. I'll give it another minute. I know people are still logging in. I know it's 3.
Yeah, there's at least a couple more I'm aware of.
God, it's Friday. I should have poured a glass of wine or something.
We're still learning how to do this.
I think I'm going to start. It's 3:01. So good afternoon, all. Thank you so much for joining the ASPE San Diego to today's webinar on Economic Forecast 2021. My name is Lorena Quintero. I work for Will Scott Mobile Mini Holdings, and I am the second vice president of our ASPE San Diego Chapter 4. Today, we want to welcome our speaker, Alan Naveen. He is an economist, demographer, and futurist. His consulting practice concentrates on development strategies for real estate investors and developers, and he serves the legal community as an expert witness in real estate related litigations. He holds graduate degrees from Stanford and American University. Before I turn the webinar to Alan, I would like to run some housekeeping items. This year, ASPE is celebrating its 50th anniversary. We will provide information on the event in our website at aspesd4.org, as this will take place in 2021. We also want to take the time to thank each of the past presidents and board of directors that helped this organization achieve success during these years. We will be recording this event and sending it out to the attendees. So if you have any questions, I don't know where your Q&A is, if it's down there or up there. So anything, please address any questions and we will try to get to all of them in a timely manner. So you can also send an email to the ASPE Chapter 4 outlook.com if time does not allow us to answer all your questions. So with further ado, I will present Alan Naveen.
Hello there. I miss our breakfast, but I'll survive.
Yeah.
Let's just talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of COVID and the economy and real estate. Why don't you turn to the first slide and see where it gets us? Next, please. Okay, so let's look at San Diego County in terms of what's happening with COVID. It's really pretty interesting that the vast majority, unfortunately, of the deaths are folks over 50 years of age. None of you are in that category, so don't worry about it. But the reality is that it's really become an old people's disease. And 40% of the deaths have been in nursing homes here. And actually in Europe, it's a much higher percent of deaths in nursing homes. So nonetheless, we're in not so bad shape. Let's look at the next one, because what we see here is that we were really cruising. We were really doing rather well until the last month, when we had a wild uptick, almost, I want to say starting at Thanksgiving, but it really happened a little bit before that. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to tail downward until we get our hands on the vaccine, which I hope won't be too far away. Let's look at the next one, because it's very interesting to see. I will tell you that until 2 months ago, that like 60 to 70% of all the confirmed cases were in South County. And now we've had a much wider spread, so that the South County is only about 39% of all the cases. But there are just a handful of zip codes, most of them near the border, that have had a huge number of cases. And of course, one of the things that's happened is that there are a lot of the expats living in Mexico who, for some odd reason, don't want to go to a Mexican hospital, and have decided to come up to Chula Vista because of Scripps and Sharp and Kaiser and the VA hospital. So that's what's happening in our scene. Now let's talk about something more pleasant. Let's go to employment. Well, the good news is that the unemployment claims initially, the first time you sign up, have dropped huge from when COVID first reared its head back in March. So we're making a progress on getting jobs back. And on the next slide, you'll see rather quickly that we've done pretty well. Now, back in March, our unemployment rate in the US was 4.4%. Here in San Diego, it was like 3.8, 3.9. Then it jumped to almost 15%. But the reality is, in the last several months in the US, the unemployment rate has really dropped precipitously and is down at 6.7%, we're a little bit over 7% here in San Diego. So basically, we're making progress, and that counts. Now, on the next one, you'll see that this has not only been tough on old folks, but it's really been tough on those who don't have a bachelor's degree or higher, because the unemployment rate for those with a bachelor's degree is basically what it was back in March. But for those who unfortunately are not blessed with a degree, the unemployment rate has been far, far higher. On the next one, we see another interesting thing. I did this back in September when the US unemployment rate was 7.9. It's almost half that for married men who live with a wife. And I haven't bothered to figure out why that's true, but the reality is that I guess it pays sometimes to be married. That's all right. Let's go to the next one. I want to look at San Diego. Fascinating. It's another one of those situations where one industry, leisure and hospitality, has been accounting for almost 50% of all the job losses here. When you look at the other categories down the way, some have lost some, but fairly insignificant. And, when we had the last big one in 2008, it was really a real estate recession. And this time it's leisure and hospitality. And I guess the really bad news is that it's going to take a long time to get that back, because a big part of that was our convention business. And, there's still 1,000 homeless living in our convention center. And incidentally, they maintain a full catering situation in the convention center. So the homeless are fed breakfast, lunch, and dinner, compliments of you. The other parts of the hospitality business are the cruise ship business. And last year, we had almost 300,000 cruise passengers leave San Diego for a cruise. And now, of course, that is dead in the water, as they say. Probably won't even come back maybe till the third quarter of this year. And the other part of it is the hospitality that goes with the fact that we're just a nice place to vacation. And that part's not doing so bad. What you find out from the hoteliers up and down the coast is that if you're near the beach, they're probably running 100% on weekends. So they're gradually coming back. It's just going to take a long while. The rest of the economy is coming back very, very nicely. There's some parts that have done incredibly well during COVID and have just benefited. I just think of the grocery stores, liquor stores, bike sales. Really, there are really a whole group of industries, including real estate and construction, that have done very, very well during this COVID. I've got some slides on that too, I'll bet you. So let's look at real estate next. Okay. The latest numbers I have are through the end of October. They always run about a month behind or two. And what we see here is that going through October, we're actually in better shape than we did last year. And the last year was a pretty good year too. And interesting thing, every month I get on a phone call with 25 home builders all around the country. And I got on the call yesterday, and I'm talking all around the country, Florida, Texas. These guys are blowing and going. They're having their best year in years. Their only complaint is they can't get materials. So they can't, it's really interesting. They can't get appliances. They can't get wood. They apparently the cement, concrete, is in short supply in a lot of these places, and they're raising their prices, and they're having a glorious time up here in 2020, and we're doing okay too. Our problem, as usual, is just an absence of land to develop. Obviously, the guys in Texas and Florida don't have that kind of problem. So anyhow, our building industry is really doing quite well. Let's look at the next one. One of the hats I wear is the economist for the San Diego Association of Realtors. And I keep track every month of what's going on in that world. So let's look at the next one. These are closed sales, closed escrows, San Diego County. And you see that the year 2020, we're almost up to where 2019 was through November. And business is really pretty good. There is a small problem, which we will see on the next slide. I follow three indicators. One is the percent of the original list price received, days on market until sale, and months supply of inventory. Well, as you can see, the original percent of original list price received is at 100%. I can tell you that about 25% of all the sales recently have been over the list price, and there's serious bidding going on. Days on market until sale, and this is sort of amazing. I mean, think of listing your house for sale and it automatically sells in 2 or 3 weeks. And that's what's happening now. And the month supply of inventory, I will tell you that in most places in the United States, they have a 6-month supply of inventory. We usually have 3 or 4 months. Here we're down to like 1 month or month and a half on detached and attached housing. And they're just not getting enough listings. The folks don't want potential buyers trooping through their house. And now almost all of these homes are being sold before the buyer has had a chance to walk through the house. So the Zoom world is doing rather well. Now, when you have this kind of situation, it is inevitable that prices go up, and they will go up on the next slide. Actually, let me hit this one. Take a look at the month supply of inventory and how it's dropped the last 3 years. It's pretty amazing. Now the next one has the pricing on it. So detached homes have gone up 13.5%, and attached over 12%, pushing 13. We haven't had a situation like this since like 2007, 2008, when the homes were much less expensive then. But now, and I'm really hoping that they really don't keep going up at this pace, because it's not sustainable, not supportable, and it really doesn't make a lot of economic sense. Although I'm just delighted to see how much my house has gone up in value in the last 2 years. And I don't know what we can do about it. Maybe when the vaccine hits, sellers will start opening their front doors to caravans, and they'll be back in business. But right now, they're really scrambling to get listings. Now, let's talk about commercial. Apartments. Interestingly enough, you've read a lot about evictions. You've read a lot about rent strikes. The reality is, it really hasn't happened. They're at the very bottom of the market. There have been a number of evictions and problems, and people have lost their jobs. But for the folks who are in B and A apartments, I talk. A lot of our clients are apartment owners, and I don't hear any complaints. They basically all have collections over 90%, which is pretty good. So that's going, but rents will be flat. I have no question about that. And you have if you've been downtown lately, you can see there's been a rather large number of projects that have just coming online and are coming online. And, and they're going to have to be given a few concessions away to get people down there, but they will fill up. Retail space, really fascinating. Remains at 95% here. There are some vacancies, but amazingly few. And the major strength has been in the supermarket anchored centers. They have been rock solid, mainly because they have national credit tenants in those centers. Strip centers have been hurt, but they will fill up again in the next 6 months or so. And the really big hurt is the regional shopping centers, and particularly the food venues within them, because companies like Nordstrom's are now doing 20-25% of their sales online, or you can order online and do pickup. If you go to the UTC Nordstrom and you see, walk in the door, there's one whole section there where you just go in and pick up your Gucci's. So, but generally speaking, it's been really rough. The big department stores who service the middle part of the market, Penny's, certainly Sears, Macy's, have been hurt very, very badly. And I think it's Macy's that just sold out to a joint venture of Brookfield and Simon's Properties. They're the anchor, generally the key anchors in their centers. So the reality is that retail, the middle of the market, will come back very nicely and is doing okay now, matter of fact. But it's the regional centers that are really hurting. Office space, I have to tell you, is really an amazing situation where we don't know what's going to happen. And most people say that we're entering a new phase of our existence in which people will work at home. I don't take that very seriously. I think people like people, and I think they like to see them in person. And the other part of it is, I think that because of social distancing, that you're going to need more space per person than you had before. And because we have been edging down, where 10 years ago, you had maybe 400 square feet per person. Now we're down to like 2 to 250. That may go back up again. The other part of it, and as this concerns San Diego, there has been an enormous demand for space in the life sciences and the high tech and software industries. And we're just doing extremely well in that part of the economy. It's sort of interesting. Apple just took down an entire building in UTC. Kilroy just finished building it, and Apple just took the whole thing, 260,000 feet or something like that. And when you drive up and around town center area, you begin to see this enormous amount. And then obviously most of it is somehow tied to UCSD, and UCSD is on a major construction binge anyhow. They have a major engineering building going up right now. They have another mixed use one that's going up right next to where the trolley last stop is on campus. And incidentally, they're now building an amphitheater on campus that'll hold 3,000 people. So that's going to be fun. Nonetheless, office space is really a question mark. Oddly enough, there's been a large demand for medical office space. I don't quite understand that, but that's happening now. So basically, office market isn't that bad, and we'll just have to see what happens. Industrial, there's your home run. Fairly remarkable. We got off to a big start this year when Amazon came in and bought a site down on Otay, and they're underway with 3.2 million square feet of distribution space, 4 stories, 1,800 parking spaces, 24 hours a day. They're going to be pushing goods out of there, and it's underway right now. And then, just to top it off, Ryan had built on spec, 500,000 square feet in the Poway Tech Center, and they thought they'd lease it to General Dynamics or General Atomics. Amazon came in and took the whole thing, and they took it for their last mile distribution center so that they can do one-day deliveries, which is pretty amazing. So the industrial market is just blowing and going, particularly down in Otay, because there are dozens and dozens of firms that feed off of Amazon and will continue to. So it's industrial is we're down to 5% vacancy. We never had that before. And there's a lot guys like Murphy, just building big industrial down on the border. It's going very, very well. So overall, real estate's in pretty decent shape, and I think it'll stay that way for a while. Can people ask me questions?
I don't have any questions or any hands up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm constantly checking. Yeah, they don't have any questions. Anything on the vaccine, or have you heard anything that, I mean, it's like you said, I'm a people person. I like to be out and about. I like to be in front of my customers, and, being in my home office remotely, sometimes it's a little frustrating. Have you heard anything on when maybe we're going to be safe? Maybe March, April? You have any idea?
No, I guess the really good news is that 3 of the 4 firms involved in producing the vaccine have a presence here in San Diego. But they'll get around to it.
Yeah.
I don't understand how any firm that is just created something anew can put out 200 or 300 million shots of that vaccine. But I want to watch them, and I'm going to roll up my sleeve and get mine.
Well, you tell us how that goes. I'll probably keep an eye on
Well,
you.
I'm not going to be first in line by a long shot, unfortunately.
We'll keep an eye on you, Alan.
Okay, good. But I hope to be back in front of you next Christmas,
Yes.
and we'll see how it all pans out.
Yeah, we do miss everybody in our chapter. We miss all our members. We miss everybody. And of course, we miss you. I mean, we saw you last year. The breakfast was amazing. And we want to really thank you that you came back and gave us this presentation. Let me see. Does anybody have any questions? No, I don't have any questions on here. Let me see. No, so we're 30 minutes in. Did you have anything else, Alan, before I close it up?
Not a thing.
Okay, thank you for that, for the webinar. I mean, yes, Amazon started, I believe, the beginning of this year. It's going to take like 2.5 years. And everything, you're right. Everything they drop it in your doorstep. You don't even have to get out anymore. Even the Grubhub or even any type of food that you order, everything is to your door. I mean, but I want to take the time to, there's a question. Hold on, let me see. There's several. Okay, so Frank is asking, what about political climate?
Doesn't make much difference. We're a big ship. Takes a long time to turn us around. No, I'm sure Washington will do very well. Our city council is now 8-1 Democratic, and it's sort of interesting. I don't think I've ever seen a time when the city council had 4 attorneys on it, which basically means that the city council meetings will take twice as long as they used to. But other than that, in terms of how they deal with housing issues,
Mhm.
I don't see any changes.
There's another question. What are prospects for construction? What do you see?
Oh, I see next year being very good.
Yeah.
I really do. A lot of it, well, the Xperi Group, most of them, not me directly, but they're involved very heavily in construction consulting. And we had a better year this year, and I think it's going to be better even next year.
I know.
I just know a huge number of projects that are getting ready to come out of the ground. I remember I just saw, I worked on the Trammell Crow property in Little Italy, and that's coming out of the ground now with 400 high-rise units. And have another client who's building another high-rise down on Broadway, and another one is just another down on 11th. I mean, these are big projects, and there's going to be a lot of action this year. Oh, plus the fact there's a lot of new land coming on in Otay Ranch that will allow a lot more development of single family and townhomes. So it's going to be a very good year. It would be nice if the price of lumber would stabilize. In March, 1,000 board feet was about 300 and some. It jumped to $1,000. Then it jumped back down to 600. Completely irrational. But I can see where there are going to be shortages,
Yeah.
particularly from goods coming from China.
Yeah, and I know that the lumber, like you mentioned, and the cement is really like in back order. They're only delivering it at construction sites where it's essential, because if you're remodeling like your homes, they're not delivering to your homes. They're delivering
No.
mostly to the construction sites.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another question is, what about the presidential situation? What if Biden actually wins? What are
If
your
he
thoughts on
actually wins, I'm assuming he'll win. The answer is it'll be a repeat of Obama.
that?
Just that simple.
Okay.
I don't know why we would expect anything more or less.
Uh-huh. Okay, so I have another question. This is, what about all of the small businesses that are closing due to COVID shutdowns? Will they come back? What are your thoughts?
The ones that are food producing
Right.
really have not had a bad time of it. They've mastered the carry out. The ones that have been really hurt are the ones that are upscale, particularly the steakhouses, and like the ones that cater to convention business, like Morton's and Ruth's Chris. I mean, who wants to do a carry out steak?
Yeah.
It doesn't, it's just not the same thing. But the small restaurants that find no problem with doing carry out, mostly ethnic foods, have done very well. They're doing fine. And they'll,
Yeah, and they're also selling some of the ingredients so you can make at home. So it's like you said, they're getting very creative on what to do to get the business up and running, where they don't have to shut down.
yeah, they're very creative.
Yes.
And
There's
so
another questions. When will the convention center be open for a trade show again?
they say spring.
Uh,
But you just don't open a door and have conventions walk in. I mean, they have a huge backlog right now from March that didn't happen. But it really takes a long time to get these conventions back. And so it'll gradually start in the third quarter. But I suspect it's probably another year before we're back up to speed. I mean, we are in the top 5 convention centers in the nation in terms of annual occupancy. And, conventions love to come here, and they will again.
yeah, we missed the Comic-Con.
Yes. Of course, now we have a Comic-Con museum.
Yeah.
And it's can't go there.
The other question is, what do you see in the education sector, like K-12 and higher?
Uh, Will gradually come back. I mean, I look at UCSD, where they've just opened a 2,000 bed dorm on Torrey Pines Road, and they're only allowing one student per room. So, there's a long way to go. And I think in San Diego State, they're facing tough times from the standpoint that they have a much higher density than UCSD, and therefore have had a lot more COVID. And then in the K to 12, the private schools seem to have come back, and some of the publics, but they really need to all get back. And I suspect what really happened is that they are, in essence, are going to lose a school year, and
Yes.
probably won't get back into action till third quarter.
Another question is, do you foresee interest rates increase? And how about inflation?
Interest rates will stay down where they are. The Federal Reserve is pretty much committed to that. And certainly our incoming president is committed to that. Interest rates will just stay down. The inflation doesn't exist, except in very selected things. As you point out, some parts of the construction industry, there's heavy inflation. But that doesn't affect many people. I mean, I don't see a situation now where people are going to raise the price on their goods. I don't think that's going to happen.
Another question is, what impact do you see once forbearance period ends for single family homes?
No, that's not going to happen. Well, first of all, we don't build that many single family homes in San Diego County. Last year, this year, maybe 3,000 homes, which is fairly insignificant for a community of 3.3 million people. So single family is a dodo as it is. And our problem is that we've been completely unwilling, or the politicians have been completely unwilling to upzone areas, because the real product that needs to be built en masse is the townhouse.
Mhm.
And, if you're from back east, you recognize that most people live in townhomes if they're living in the city. And that's just fine. And we missed a bit because our zoning doesn't really accommodate townhomes. Plus, the other part is we especially need mixed zoning in areas where we have employment and housing, so people actually could walk to work, bike to work. They're thinking about it, but not tomorrow morning.
There's another question. This is kind of a long one. Here we go. Since the schools have been shuttered and several school districts are still continuing with construction based on previous bond programs funding, once those funds are used up, will the attitude be different towards voting on bonds for school construction, since perhaps they don't need as large of facilities in future learning scenarios?
It's sort of interesting. The passage of bonds for schools has been like a 50-50 sort of proposition, that where it used to be a lot higher. But I don't think the folks in San Diego, at least, are willing to vote for more bonds. So I don't see a lot of that happening. Plus the fact the San Diego Unified School District, which is the big one here in town, is losing enrollment, and they're selling off schools. So the school bonds, we're not having as many kids as we did in the past. And therefore, we just don't need a lot of glamorous schools.
I think that's all the questions that arose. There's none right now. So,
Okay.
let me see. Yeah, if anybody has any additional questions, please feel free, like I said, and send us an email at aspchapter4@outlook.com. If did you have any more information, Alan, or before I close it out?
No, nothing new.
Well, I want to thank everybody very much for taking the time today to join our ASP San Diego chapter webinar. We want to remind our members that you still have time to renew your membership, which expires on December 31st of this year. If you're not yet a member, you can visit our website at aspesd4.org, or you can reach out Carol Hutchinson from United Site Services or Edna Rodriguez. She's from H&E Equipment. They will be happy to set up an appointment with you on a one-on-one and talk to you about the benefits. So the ASP board would like to wish everyone a safe and healthy holidays. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining our call. Thank you, Alan, so much for your
A
time
pleasure.
and doing this for us.
Talk to you next year.
Yes, hopefully in person.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.